crucial are leadership and teamwork in your professional and personal life? Have you seen promising projects fail because there was no vision, no leader worth following, or a lack of collaboration? Everyone has leadership capacity, and every person can make a difference right where they are. But it takes high-performing teams with authentic leaders to work effectively and efficiently together to achieve success. How do you get there, let alone sustain results? Our inspirational speaker today is going to show you how. Randy Fox is someone who dedicates his life to transformational principles of leadership and teamwork, having served 20 years as a corporate leader, becoming an accomplished NCAA basketball referee, authoring several landmark books, and delivering life-changing keynotes for over a decade. Randy knows how to achieve your ultimate potential. So, are you ready? Are you ready to transform your life and your organization? It's time to maximize your potential, increase your performance, and be fulfilled in your life. Ladies and gentlemen, now is the time. Get ready to enjoy the experience of Randy Fox.
All right. I want you to come back with me to a time when you were just 5 years old. Now, 5 years old for some of you is way back. But come back to this time when you were just 5 years old. A time when you were learning and a time when you were excited for new adventures and for the day. And we just started to see things a little bit differently as we got older. See, when we were 5, the pressures weren't the same as they are today. When we were 5, there was just joy when you woke up in the morning. It's a totally different time. And we learned things when we were 5 that we can't forget today. I remember something that I learned when I was 5 years old. Repeat this back. Say 3. 312. 31265. 312-6530. You're doing good. 312-653-0213. Yeah, need a little more coffee. 312-653-0213 was my childhood home phone number. Do you remember yours? Of course you do, right? You needed it. You memorized it. You repeated it because it was important. You learned it because you needed it for fun, communication, safety, whatever it may have been. I grew up with one of those phones that went like this. Remember those? Right now you just speak and it just dials. It was a different time, and if you are familiar, 312 is what area code? Where's it from? Chicago. I understand where I'm located right now. I'm very close to Titletown, right, USA, and yes, I'm a starving Bears fan, but we got the #1 pick this year. Way to slide into the bottom, Bears. Way to go. My wife, though, is from Wapaka, so and one of my children was born in Wisconsin, so I guess I'm kind of an honorary Packer fan. But we actually have a banner at our house. It's house divided. We've got a Packer helmet and a Bear helmet on a banner, and then I burned it because I got tired of getting beat, all the time. But in all seriousness, it's great to be here and with you today to kind of wrap things up for your journey, and hopefully something that has already happened over the last couple of days or that we're yet to experience in our brief time together is something worthy of remembering, like that childhood home phone number, because that was important. See, there's sometimes we just remember some things, right? Right? If I were to say, "We are farmers," bum ba dum bum. Exactly, right? There she was, just a walking down the street singing. Yeah. Kind of stupid, isn't it, that we remember these things? Some of us weren't even born when that song was written. Hopefully today you're going to take something away about how to build your business, be more fulfilled in your life, become more profitable, be a better leader, be a better servant, because that's really the industry that you're in. See, we have this association family that's here and that's gathered today, and some will be watching it via the video that weren't able to stay with us, but this is your family, right? A community of people that do similar things, but you help one another be successful in what you do. But you also have families at home. People that you care about and that you love. How many people here have children? Raise your hand high, be proud you've got children. Well, that's almost everybody. How many people here are children? That is everybody. Yeah. Yeah. Anybody like to act like a child every once in a while? Some of you were probably up too late last night, maybe lost a little money. That's okay, though. It's okay to have fun in life. It's not just about work, right? We have to play as well. My wife and I have 3 children. The oldest is 25. Then we have a 22-year-old and then an 11-year-old. Yeah, there's a story. It may not be what you think, but I'll share a little bit with you today. But family's important, whether it's at work, in your community, at home. You serve well by leading well. Whether you're the owner of your business or one of the leaders, whether you're in sales, whatever your role might be, we have to lead well, to serve well, to live well. And if you want to grow your business, we have to lead well, to serve well, to live well. The business doesn't grow just by staring at the numbers. But the opening speaker today was right on, right? What are you going to be doing differently than your competition? And it starts with you. It starts with you. If you don't take anything from our time together, take this. The world is waiting for you. The world is waiting for you. The world is starving for you. The world needs hope. The world needs love. The world is an absolute mess. But it doesn't have to be. It's waiting for you. It is truly waiting for people to show up and make a difference, and that's exactly what you do. I understand that there's wood, and there's steel, and there's people, and there's all these processes to build this product, and I get it that you're running a business and you've got to be profitable or you're selling, whatever your role might be. Yet, at the end of the day, never forget, you're a part of people's family. Whether it's their home, whether it's a new business building, whatever that structure is, it's more than a structure. It becomes a part of their life. And you may never be there again, but the legacy that you leave, the journey that you take with them, it is precious. And so when all of those pressures are coming on you, don't forget the value, the importance of the family and that community that you are creating and helping to build because you gave them a home or a place to build their business. You worked with them on something very special. So as we get going into this and we realize that we have to lead well, to serve well, to live well, because the world is waiting for you, each and every one of you, let's start with leading well. It's a simple question. The answer has complexities to it, and living it out is even more challenging. When you think of living or leading well, you think about what it takes to lead a team, to lead others, to lead your family, to be a leader. When you look at people and say, that's the kind of leader that I want to follow, what are the types of characteristics? What are the types of things that are important to you for a leader that leads well? Toss it out.
Empathetic.
They're what? Empathetic. Empathetic. Okay, for a moment I thought you said pathetic. They are empathetic, right? They have an understanding of others. Yes, and what they're going through. What else? They're confident. Good one. They are trustworthy. That word was already talked about earlier today too, right? When somebody was saying the difference is you, and he was saying, yeah, you got to be trustworthy. They have to trust you. What else? They have integrity. They have a reputation. My grandfather always used to say, he's been passed away now 24 years. And actually one of the books that I wrote, I have it with me today if you want to get one, is called A Leader Worth Following. And that was my grandfather for me. And he said, take care of your name and your credit, because it always beats you to the next place. I didn't really get it when I was 8. But then when I got into my teens, I got into my 20s, and now into my 50s, I totally get it. Your reputation is there before you even arrive. And it stays after you leave. What else? What is a person that leads well?
He's a mentor.
They're a mentor. They are a mentor to others. Keep them coming. They're dedicated, right? They're not going to give up. It's kind of like persistent, right? They stay in that.
Servant.
They're a servant. Excellent.
Consistent.
They're consistent.
Do their homework.
They do their homework, so they're prepared. They practice. You probably saw in the video package, I spent nearly 25 years as an NCAA women's basketball referee. And it was when I lived in the Chicago area. Now I live in Florida. And I refereed all around the Midwest. And the best way for referees to get better is we watch video. Because you can think something happened, but when you watch the video of it, the video doesn't lie. And I actually moved on, and I'm getting ready to retire from this role, but I've been assigning referees for 23 colleges in the Midwest. And this is my final season doing that, but actually last night I went and watched one of my games over at Ripon College. And when the game was over, we sat down in the locker room, and I was live streaming it on my computer even though I was there. And we talked about a play, and they said, what do you think? And I said, I think you got it wrong. They're like, are you sure? I turned around my computer, and I said, watch it. Right? It's this idea of doing your homework. It's the idea of, they looked at it and went, oh, I said, now let's talk about why you missed it. Right? Because it's not just enough to know that I got it right or wrong, but why did I get it right or wrong? What do I need to do differently? And what was your position? And what was your attitude in the moment? And so many other things. So doing your homework, we could spend 2 days about talking about how we can prepare and practice and get better. Yeah, I say this all the time, though. Nobody is perfect, right? The difference, though, between you and me, though, is the mistakes that you make. The mistakes that I made for those 25 years, they replayed on jumbotrons in the middle of arenas. For real. I remember one time that I was officiating a game in a pretty good sized arena, big jumbotron. I made a foul call, and as soon as I made it, I knew it was bad. I'm like, that sucked. But see, in basketball, when you blow your whistle, you're calling a foul. Right? I don't know how the NFL gets away with that. They throw the flag, and then they suddenly just go, there is no penalty. Oh, okay. Yeah, we don't get to do that in basketball. I go over and the coach is just coming right at me. He's like, Randy, you need to look up at that replay. And I just said, I don't want to. And you know what he did? He just went like this and walked away. Right? Because he got it. What else about leading well? What else? What's important to you? A good attitude. Accountability. Productivity. Results matter. I mean, you're not in the business to lose money. So you have to be efficient and productive with what you do. What else? Humility. Oh, man, I think some of our leaders in our country need some of that. I'm not going to go any further. You can pick whatever side of the aisle you want. Same story, right? Same story. Little humility. See, I think when you have a servant attitude, you become a little more humble. Or maybe when you become humble, you serve a little bit better, right? We'll get into some of that a little bit more. Any others? These have been great ones. A couple more? Humble.
Lead by example.
Lead by example. A role model, right? You're not just saying it, you're doing it. People see you living it out. And I think somebody said integrity earlier, and I think the hardest part is when nobody's looking. No one's going to find out. How would they know? I was a senior executive at a company for many years, sales and marketing leader, and we had a situation one time where a customer contacted us and they said that we had overbilled them the past month. And I had actually been the one that wrote the contract. And so the sales team, she asked me if I would take a look into it, and I did, and we did. We overbilled them. And it was an accident. I mean, however, it happens, right? It was just an honest mistake. We overbilled them by several $1,000s every month for a year and a half. It was tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars that we had now taken, put in the bank, and the accountants had done all of their work. Like fiscal years had changed. Like it was a big deal that this had already been booked. And everybody goes, so we all get in a room and I'm like, okay, so we got to talk about what we're going to do here. How do we want to handle this? And the conversation starts with, well, they only asked about last month. And for a moment, some people went, yeah, we could just do that. Or then it was, well, what if we just went back a few months? Because they're not going to go back 18 months. I mean, come on, right? They've forgotten about it. They've closed their books too, right? In this whole, until suddenly, finally, a leader spoke up and said, wait a second. What are we doing here? And somebody said, well, if we tell them that we've overbilled them and we didn't even know it for 18 months, they're going to think that we are incompetent or that we're trying to take advantage of them and we're going to lose our trust. And that leader said, but if we don't do anything and they find out, then what will they think of us? And who else will they tell? So obviously, right, the right thing was done. But that's that integrity moment where I don't know if they ever would have found out or not. But we couldn't sleep that night knowing that we had mistakenly overbilled them and we were just going to keep the money because they hadn't found out. Maybe you don't have that situation, but we all face those little moments where we get concerned about the profit or the reputation. And if we just do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, it's always the right thing to do, right? Honesty isn't the best policy. It just isn't. Honesty is the only policy. Otherwise, that trust is gone. My daughter, 2 sons, 25, 22, my daughter's the 11-year-old. And when she was 2, she loved it when I played catch with her. 2 years old. She's an athlete. She's very, very talented. But the kind of catch that I'm talking about here is where I actually took her and I threw her in the air. And I would catch her. And she'd say, Daddy, again. And I would toss her in the air and I would catch her. And she would keep asking to do it again and again and again. And it was so fun to just toss her in the air and she'd be giggling. If you've got a 2-year-old, go home and throw them in the air and catch them. If you don't, borrow your neighbor's. I mean, they love it. And you know why they love it? You catch them. Just try it one time. Toss them in the air and step back. Do you want to do it again? Probably not. Think about every time that you interact with another person, not just your clients, not just your peers, not just your wife or your children or your neighbors, but anybody, every single time that you interact with them. Think about taking your relationship with them and tossing it in the air. You talk about trust. If you can think about that every time you interact with someone, that you are tossing your relationship with them in the air. Whether you've known them for 30 seconds or 30 years, you got to catch them. Because trust takes forever to build, seconds to lose. Because if they're expecting it and it doesn't happen, it starts to erode. So if your differentiator to making more profit is by bringing the value of you, then you've got to be this kind of a leader. Now see, this leadership isn't a title, and everything you just described isn't found on business cards, and it doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter if you're in your 80s or you're 18. It doesn't matter if you've been in this business for 50 years or 50 days. It doesn't matter if you're in what quarter of life that you may be in. All of those words and all of the others that you didn't say about leading well, y'all can do it. Y'all can be that type of leader. Nothing that you said has anything to do with how much money you had, where you went to school, or whether you're a Bears or a Packer fan. Doesn't remember if you know all the words to do, diddy, it doesn't matter. You can live out being that kind of leader. And now you're on your way to creating that culture of excellence, to maximizing your potential, increasing your performance, and then really being fulfilled in your life. Let's just take this a little deeper. See, when we talk about leading well like this and all of those words, what we're really talking about is the big word that is the umbrella over all of that in leadership, and it's influence. See, influence is the most effective way to lead, and everything that you just described are the elements of influence, because without them you don't have the influence, but with those elements you have influence. And when you have influence, people change their thinking and their behavior, whether you're their boss or not. You can lead up, sideways, out, anywhere when you have influence. So right now, I'm going to ask you to trust me for a moment. Nothing crazy is going to happen. I'm not going to come around and touch you or anything. I want you to close your eyes with me for just a second, because I want you to be able to visualize a face. I want you to see the face of the person, you can pick two people, that's fine, that influenced your life the most. You see their face right now. This person, these two people, they influence your life, and whether they're here or they've passed on, why are you seeing their face right now? You can open your eyes. Why are you seeing their face? What did they do? Would anybody be so courageous? That's another great word for leaders that lead well. Would you be willing to share with us who you were thinking of and why? Your dad. Why? Leadership. He showed you how to be a man.
He always told me one thing. He says, if you ever want to know how fast a year goes around, just go to the bank. I never forgot that.
If you ever want to know how fast a year goes around,
Just go to the bank and borrow some money.
just go to the bank and borrow some money. Somebody got one that's not a parent? Somebody that you saw and thought of? Not a parent? Everybody thought of a parent? Yes, sir.
Next door neighbor.
Next door neighbor. Current or previous?
Oh, growing up.
Growing up.
From grade school to middle school, 2 years older than me, but the way he carried himself, good athlete, took care of himself, good student, just always kind of a role model without him being a role model.
So he was 2 years older than you. He was your next door neighbor. He was an athlete, a good student, a good role model, and he probably didn't even know it.
No, if I said it to him today, he lives in Vegas, he's a chiropractor, he's a real humble guy.
Yeah.
He'd be like, wow.
Yeah. But you saw all of those things that we were talking about earlier in him, and at a young age, as a teenager.
Yeah.
And he was only 2 years older than you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Pretty simple.
One other one? Anybody got one more?
I always thought of my dad, but Roger Penske.
Roger Penske. Okay. And why Roger Penske?
Because he has class and he's successful.
He had class, successful, honest.
I
Yeah.
used to think 20 years ago the guy should run for president.
Maybe he should run for president now.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm not going to ask you to share this, but it would probably be likely that somebody has somebody in their top few people in this room. These were great examples of quality leaders. Maybe you have one that was negative. So I didn't ask you to think of somebody that was a positive influence. I asked you to think of somebody that was most influential. And we can have people in our lives that negative. I have one of those people. I'm not going to tell that story, but we can have people that negatively influence us, and it scars us or it changes us to say, I don't want to be like them. See, influence is influence, and how you lead is going to influence people. How you lead your life and lead your team, what comes out of your mouth, the actions that you have, it will touch people, and here is the main point. There will be a day that those people will be sitting in a room. And a speaker like myself is going to be asking them. It might be 5 months from now, it might be 5 years from now, it might be 50 years from now. It might be long after the Lord takes you home. And the question is going to be, who influenced your life the most? Are they going to think of you? Are they going to think of you? Who's going to think of you? And why? How are you leading on a daily basis? We can be very profitable. We can be very successful. But we can also still be humble and be servants and have empathy and be role models and be mentors and come through as interested in others, maybe even a little bit more than we're interested in our pocketbook or our productivity. Why will they think of you, and who will think of you as you lead well each and every day, not just for your business, but for your family, for everything that happens? Because here's the thing, you don't know what's coming. Almost 21 years ago, went in the doctor's office. Looks at my wife at the time and says, "You have cancer." Our boys were really young, like 4 and 1, and I'm a plant manager, and I've got hundreds of employees, $35 million operation. I'm 32 years old, and that happens. But yet, still got to go to work, still got to provide, still got to be a dad, still got to live life. See, we still have to lead well regardless of the things and the circumstances that come our way. How do we continue to stay focused on those things? How do we not just lead well, but as we said, serve well? How do we get to that place where no matter what happens, no matter what that difficulty is, we still have the motivation to keep going. We still have the courage and the character to be the people that we need to be as we're off trying to serve and make a difference in the world. True story, one of my best friends, he had a dream years ago, years and years ago. He wanted to make his entire living refereeing basketball. He wanted to make a full living in 4.5 to 5 months. Be on ESPN, be in the national tournament, get yelled at by thousands of people and love doing it. That was his dream. And on one of his very first Division I games, it was in Chicago, this happens. Now, I'm just going to call them Larry, Moe, and Curly, because everybody thinks that the referees are stooges anyways. So it happens all the time, right? A player, she drives to the basket, and as she goes up to that basket, she gets hit on the arm. Larry blows her whistle. Foul. Larry's walking to the table to report that foul. Mo walks on by. My friend is Mo. Mo walks on by, and Mo just says, hey, that ball went in. Cool. Larry counts the basket, reports the foul, turns around. Thank you. Right? Don't you love it when teammates help you? And here comes the opposing coach going, the ball didn't go in. Now you're going to be Larry in the story because you're going to lead well by serving well. So Larry's kind of going, well, maybe I better go talk to some other people and see if they've got another opinion on this. Since this coach seems to believe it didn't go in, she walks right over to Curly and says, did you see that ball go in? Curly says, what ball? The round one. It's orange. We've been playing with it for 45 minutes. Don't be Curly, and don't tolerate Curlies, right? We got to be ready to help one another. How can we possibly serve people when we're clueless to what's going on? So she walks over to the scorer's table and asks the scorekeeper, who's got glasses on so thick she can see the future, and she's like, did you see if that ball went in? She's like, I'm not sure, honey. Okay, now what are you going to do? Well, Larry decides to walk back over to Mo and says, Mo, are you sure that ball went in? Mo goes, not anymore. So Larry counts the basket. The game goes on to overtime. The team that they gave those 2 points to wins the game in overtime by 1. Oh, you know where this is going. So this is back in the time where they didn't have all the replay stuff. This is back a ways. So the next morning, you've got mail. Subject line in the email from the big boss of that conference. And by the way, in women's college basketball, that big boss, she's got all of the conferences in the Midwest. Like the big ones, like the Big 10, the Big 12, Missouri Valley. Like if you want to work, you're working for her, you're not working. Remember, he's got this dream. He wants to be successful. And here's how he's starting his career, receiving a phone call at 7 a.m., and he looks at the video, and the ball misses the basket by 3 feet. And now he's on the phone with the boss who just says, what were you looking at? Okay, this is the moment, right? Like, how do you keep going? He feels like a total failure. He's thinking his career's over before it even began. How do you keep going? Well, you have to come back to what's important to you. What do you stand on? And he basically said, well, Larry counted the basket and Curly didn't even know what game we played. No, he didn't say that. Right? He said, this is on me. And when she called Larry, Larry said, this is on me. Right? They owned it. But then they still had the motivation to keep going. How did they keep going? They told the story I just told you. The boss said, tell it to everybody. Tell it in every pregame. Tell it at every camp. Tell it everywhere that you go. So my friend and I wrote a book together, and we put the story in the book. That here we are over 15 years later still telling the story so that others won't make the same mistake. So that others will learn, so that we become teachers. But he stayed motivated and focused. And here's the key. See, failure happens. And failure describes an event, not a person. However, when failure happens, you have a choice to make. That failure can either define you, or you can use it to refine you. You think about gold, right? You buy jewelry, it looks so brilliant, those diamonds that the ladies love. It doesn't look like that. It's dirty. It's got to be refined. The gold goes through this refining process to get rid of all the junk. You've got to be willing to go through that process and say, you know what? It's not why did this happen or why am I an idiot, but what can I learn from this? No matter how old or young we are, we're still learning. And you keep going. And you keep going. And you keep getting better. And maybe you'll be my friend, Mo. His real name is Jeff. And maybe you'll be Jeff. And maybe after you've told this story and it's really fresh and it's really raw, just a few days after it happened, he's got another game. But he's actually working with a really good friend of his he's known for 20 years. And his friend calls a foul because a girl was hit on the arm. And as the friend goes to report the foul, my friend Jeff comes by and says, hey, the ball went in. Deja vu all over again, as Yogi Berra would say. The friend literally turned around and looked at him and said, can I trust you? 20-year relationship. And he was serious. And Jeff goes, no, it went in. And he's like, so you thought on the other one? See, we have to continue to build ourselves as leaders. Our reputation is constantly evolving. There is no neutral. You are either growing as a leader, you are either growing your relationships with clients, you are either building your reputation in the business up, or it's going down. There's no neutral, because your competitors are going up. Somebody's going up. So if you're not going up, you're going down. So everything that we do has to be constantly getting better. So I applaud you for being here, or watching this if you're watching it online, because we have to invest in ourselves in order to lead well, to ultimately serve well. I have just an amazing blessing and joy for the last 10 years to get to do this, to plant seeds. And as I always say, my fruit grows on other people's trees. We may meet again, we may stay connected, we may not. My hope, though, is that this gives you something to use today for your life, to go touch others, that it changes theirs, right? The world's waiting for you. And so we get out there each day to make that difference, to really serve others. As I'm traveling the country, one of the hardest pieces of it is flying. The air travel experience can be challenging at times. And many times, I want you to think about this in your business, right? You're offering a service, and there is a product that is delivered. The flights do the same thing. Are they a commodity business? Oh, yeah. They got to get you from A to B. When you get in there, the flight attendants show you how to fasten your seatbelt, like we don't already know. They walk around and they ask you if you want something to drink. I saw this happen, literally just happened last month. I'm on a flight. Flight attendant walks up to somebody, asks them what they want to drink. I don't know what they said. I couldn't hear them back, but I heard the flight attendant. She says, you didn't read the card because we don't have that. Oh, thank you very much. Glad I gave you my $700 to be on here so that you could remind me I'm an idiot. But see, there's a difference between doing the job and serving well. And those are not the same. You want a differentiator? Here's a differentiator. Let me talk to you about our flight attendant friend, Abraham. My wife and I were on a flight flying to San Antonio, Texas. Abraham, come aboard. A completely different experience. He walks down the aisle and he asks somebody what they want to drink, and I hear him in the very first row, and he goes, woo! That sounds so good. If that seat next to you was open, I'd sit down and have one too. I was like, oh, this guy's doing the job, but he's doing it differently. He's creating a relational experience, not just a transaction. He's seeing people for people and trying to lift them. He comes to me and he looks right at me and he says, sir, I would be no gentleman if I did not serve the beautiful woman sitting next to you first. Thank God it was my wife. What a great experience. But my favorite part is when they collect the trash. See, when they collect the trash, well, it's okay to collect the trash. You want them to collect the trash. And most of the time, they collect it with yes. This is from Southwest Airlines. It looks like it's from Costco. Maybe that's where they buy them in bulk. When they pull this out and they stand at the front of the plane, you're ready. You know what's coming. They don't have to say a word. You know that it is time to collect the trash because this is a trash bag. And they come through with the trash bag to collect the trash. Do you expect this? You accept this. And they walk through trash, 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 trash. They look right at you and call you trash. We don't say a word, though. We just put our trash in it and everybody goes, right? And you say, well, what does this have to do with serving? Oh, I'll tell you what it has to do, because you have things that you do in your business every single day that are like this. Your team, how you work with your family, how you take care of your community. There are things that you do every single day that nobody's going to say a word, but you get it done. No big deal. Task complete. That's not serving well, though. That's not serving at what Abraham did and what I call silver platter service, because that's exactly what Abraham brought out. Abraham came down the aisle to the first row with a shiny silver platter. It was empty. It was slightly larger than this one, and he came to the first row and he collected the trash. He went back to the galley and emptied it. He came to the second row with the shiny silver platter and he collected the trash. Every row received silver platter service. I was on Southwest Airlines. Southwest Airlines doesn't have first class. But that day, silver platter. Silver platter service. He could have used the trash bag. Everybody else does. Differentiator. He created an experience that changed me. I wrote a book about it called Silver Platter Service. You're hearing this story because Abraham decided that serving well meant taking something small that nobody expects and they don't even deserve and delivering it to them with a smile. Silver platter service. What will you do? What will you do in your business? What will you do for your team? What will you do for your client? What will you do for your family where you can give silver platter service? Not because they asked for it, not because they deserve it, because you want to serve well. Silver platter service. I can't give it to you what you have to do, but you have to do it if you want to serve well. You want to break the pricing commodity? Silver platter service. Find a way to give them something that nobody else does. And if you don't know where to begin, start with your wife and kids. Get up in the morning or when you go home tonight and do something that just serves on them in a small way that makes a huge difference. I went to Abraham later in that flight. I had to talk to him. I walked up and I said, Abraham, I got a question for you. And he says, what's your name, sir? I said, Randy. He's like, what's your last name? Fox? He's like, Mr. Fox, how can I help? Like everything about him was different. It was all about serving other people. And I said, Abraham, you seem to love your job. And he says, no, I like my job. He goes, but I love people. He said, I love having the opportunity to make a difference and to see people smile. And that's why I do everything that I do for people, to just be a small part of a difference maker in their day. I hope you always love people more than you like your job. I hope that you find a way to deliver silver platter service. Throw away the white trash bag. Give them the silver platter. Give them a little piece of yourself that changes everything forever for them. But it will for you too. When you find that thing, small, but it's a big difference. Because it's you. It's you creating a culture. It's you creating a community. Don't wait for somebody else to do it. Don't say, well, nobody else does that for me. Okay, you go first. And maybe nobody ever will. So what? Keep doing it. See, when we said the world's waiting for you, this is what they're waiting for. They're waiting for somebody to be different than the rest of the world. And from a business perspective, they will pay for it. I had an event that I could have taken another airline, but I chose to drive 2 hours so I could fly Southwest Airlines, just hoping that I would see Abraham again. But I haven't. But I've talked about them to other flight attendants, and I've told the story. And as I'm telling the story, one time another flight attendant, now how many tens of thousands of flight attendants does Southwest have? I never said his name. I just was telling the story, showing her my book. And she's like, oh, that's got to be Abraham out of Atlanta. Reputation. He is known. And now others are chasing him. See, there's a culture that's being created, and then it exudes out. Start in your home. Go to your business. Go to your clients. Lead well. Serve well, so that you can live well. And we don't want to just miss that opportunity to really help other people while we're interested in growing our business. I think it's really hard, and we didn't say this word yet. I think it's an important one. How can you help your family be their best, or help your client in their quest for that dream? How can you possibly help them if you don't do this one thing? Several years ago, we were heading to a family gathering in Wapaka. Coming off the highway, going out west on 10. Y'all with me? There's not a lot of gas stations as we're going along out there, and that's where my wife grew up, and I'm driving her vehicle. And as we're going along, she says to me, it looks like you're about to run out of gas. Now, I don't know how you feel, but when I'm driving the car, I like to just drive the car. I don't need somebody else helping me drive the car. Back seat, front seat, side seat, whatever it is. If you wanted to drive, we should have switched seats. I'm driving, right? That's kind of how I get sometimes, but it's maybe not the best strategy when it's an area that I don't know and my wife is talking to me. Well, I've been driving for 3.5 hours. I am just ready to get to our destination. But I did punch the buttons. And it said we had 32 miles to go to the destination and about 25 miles to empty. There's always a little extra in the bottom, though. They safeguard that for you, right? Running on fumes is what they call it, but really they're trying to protect you, and they give you a guardrail to say, hey, you're going to run out of gas in 25 miles, but really there's extra. Well, then we go a little bit further, and she's saying, there's one more. She goes, I don't think you're going to make it, because, the line, like E is here, the line's like here. And I'm looking on the thing, and it says we got 24 miles to go, and it's asterisks. There's nothing left, it says, in the tank, and then powering down. The vehicle turns off. I have a brake and a steering wheel. The radio goes off. The dashboard is dark. My mom is in the way back going, is everything okay? And my wife is looking at me. She is about to pummel me. She's like, you did not I said, we're not done yet. We're still moving. We went off the road. We went down the ramp, turned right through a stop sign to a frontage road, and there was a gas station. And the car stopped. Didn't make it. Had to get out. My son and I are trying to push a 7,000-pound vehicle off another guy pulls up in a pickup, and he just looked like he had been there himself. He's like, your family's in there? Wife? Said, Mom. Oh. So we get it to the pump. I fill the car up, sit back down, and I just say, I'm sorry. See, leaders have an ability to apologize. No one spoke for 20 minutes. We got to my mother-in-law's house, and we got the car loaded up with people and bags and all kinds of stuff. And we get there, and I don't even have the thing in park. And that door is open, and my wife is inside that house. And I'm like, well, I got to get on in there and defend myself. So I get in there, and she's just telling the whole story, and everybody starts yelling at me. And I said, time out. this is going to make great material for my keynotes. It's a true story. I didn't listen to the car. I didn't listen to my wife. I started by telling you I like to just do it, right? And what the reality of it is there is no way you can lead well or serve well or take care of your family or any client if you do not have this one thing absolutely mastered, and that is listening. And truly listening. How often when someone's talking are you thinking about what you're going to say? How often when they're talking are you in your head disagreeing with what they're saying? Or you've spaced out and you're on to something else? And how often do they say something and then we just kind of take that, but what we really should be doing is asking another question. Because the more questions we ask, the more information we gather, and the better that we listen, the better we can serve. You don't know what their silver platter is. Maybe you can figure it out by asking questions. Instead of just showing up, giving them a quote, or I'd love to do this for you. What's important to you? What's your greatest concern? What would be a home run, grand slam, touchdown, win the Super Bowl, whatever metaphor you want to use? If we did that, what would that be? And what's the thing that you're most afraid of? What if you just kept asking questions? And here's a great one. When you don't know what to ask, even at home, especially if you've got a wife, just ask these 4 words. How can I help? Sometimes you don't want to say anything. Just say, how can I help? You can't help. Okay, but at least you asked. But really, you can help. Don't walk away in that moment. Maybe if you've been married a long time, you've already learned. We have to be able to listen to others in order to serve them. I hope that you will figure out a way to introduce a silver platter moment for yourself. Something that's you, that's unique. I hope that you'll own your mistakes and that you would lead so well that others would remember you, even when you're not in this room, or not at the job, or not in the community, or not on this earth. That they would remember you not because you were rich or successful, yet because you led well and you served well and you lived well. Our world is a little bit of a wreck. We've had a tough time. I know that your industry has had a crazy time between labor shortages, supply chain issues. Lumber prices have been very stable for the last 3 years. I mean, it's hard, but it's worth it. Because there's people's dreams and families and your family and the community that you've created. And all of that is worth it because you are worth it and every one of them is worth it. So don't give up. Don't ever give up on those moments. We've got just a few minutes left. I want to share one last story with you. Before we do that, though, if you're interested in connecting, I'd love to help you. I'd love for you to help me on our leadership journeys, wherever that takes us. So as I was saying to Doug, I do a video at least once a week. They're like 2 to 4 minutes long. I actually recorded one this morning out there beforehand. And we send those out via email or we post them on LinkedIn. So if that's something you're interested in, I've got some cards over there. You could sign up for it. It's totally free. It's just a great way to maintain inspiration and information to keep going in your life, right? Because we all need help with one another, with what we're doing. So I'd love to connect with you. I also brought 2 of my best-selling books with me, Silver Platter Service, How to Create a Culture of Excellence, and A Leader Worth Following, The Real Take on Real Leadership. I already shared with you my guy, when I had my eyes closed, is my grandfather. Been passed away 25 years. Right? He modeled integrity and honesty and all of those things that we need. He had great one-liners from back in the day. He was the manager of a grain elevator in Morris, Illinois. never graduated from high school. But to me, he was like the smartest man in the world. And I share some of his wisdom and make it applicable today. Both of those books, by the way, were written after the pandemic began, so they're very current and relatable to your world. If you want to stop by, and I'll make you a deal on picking those up today and sign them for you. If you just want to chat, fist bump, high five, whatever you want to do, I'll hang around a few minutes with you. Love to connect in that way. But before we go, I promised one more story. 21 years ago, we're in the doctor's office. The doctor was a mess. I mean, his hair was a mess. He did not look like he showered. He did not look like he slept. And the reason that I know that is because he told us that. He literally walked in at 8 o'clock for our 8 o'clock meeting, and we did not meet in an exam room. We met in his office, like the desk and the leather chairs and the whole thing. And I'm kind of going like, why are we in here? Normally you meet in an exam room and a nurse comes in and does this, and they just walked us right to his personal office. And he walks in and looks at my wife and says, "You have cancer, comma, there's no cure." I met my first wife when I was 17 years old. She got an incurable liver cancer when she was 31. No cure. We did all kinds of things. She should have died almost immediately, but she lived another 4.5 years. She lived with such strength and dignity and grace. She didn't complain about it. She just loved people in the moment. She just did whatever she could to be the best mom or the best aunt or the best friend or whatever, wherever she was, wherever you go. Can you just be the best? Can you just live well in that moment? Because we don't know how many moments we have. The Lord took her home. I don't know why. At 36. Right? The sand in the hourglass, boom, 36 years. How many do you have? We don't know. And we don't get to flip it back over again. We get this one chance to touch lives, to make a difference, to be fulfilled, to leave a legacy, to live well. Yeah, grow your business. Yeah, make your family, become amazing. Get those kids to grow up. If they're older, help your grandkids, whatever it might be. But in the moment, that's all you have is that moment. And I don't want anybody to relive what I lived, but we all, newsflash, 10 out of 10 of us will die. But it's how we live that matters. See, when she passed away, I had faith, and my faith has grown to recognize that I do not keep this universe or this earth going. I did not create myself, and neither did you, and I thank God for what He gave me then and still does today. My family and my friends that came around us. The game of basketball, though, is more to me than just a game. Because, see, later that year when I went to the preseason basketball meeting for referees, we sat in a room with hundreds of referees getting ready for the season, and I sat down with a woman from Waupaca, Wisconsin. Didn't really know her. And we began a conversation, and very quickly that conversation turned into longer conversations, and suddenly I realized, oh my goodness, I'm 17 again and I'm dating someone. And we got married. I never expected that. I never planned on that. I don't know where your life is going to go. 20-some years ago, I wouldn't have written it this way, but I'm here to tell the story. And it's my story. You've got one. Share it with the world. All the good, all the bad, be real and just live in those moments. And in my early 40s, my second wife, my current wife that I will, God willing, get home to tonight, and my daughter, she says to me in my early 40s, I think we should have a kid together. And I'm like, wait a second. Do you remember our first date when I talked to you about a little surgery that I had? And I had the reversal, and I paid the $10,000, and it was painful. It was so worth it. I got my little princess that I never even thought that I wanted or needed, and it has changed my life. My story isn't your story, but you have one. You're living in it, and this is the moment right now. You don't get another one promised. The other ones are done. We all know this. How well are you living in the moment today? Lead well, serve well, live well. Why? We already said it. And we close with this. Why? One reason. The world is waiting for you. God bless you all. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Randy. That was really good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we'll wrap it up. Paul's still here, so if you want to have any more conversation with him, and Randy will be right over there. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for your time and all of your efforts. So we will be having a golf outing. That'll be something that'll come out, and hopefully more. We'll have better information for you to see that. So thank you all again for coming.